Before you tune completely out on me, don't worry, we're not going to get into anything as exciting as cosmology or thermodynamics, which is actually the science of energy and energy transfer in regards to physical matter, which would be really helpful here, but we're not going to party that hard. We will just have a little peek at some of their core concepts in terms of how they relate to the topic of this video. This is not an educational resource on these topics. I'm only looking at them in terms of how they relate to the spiritual process, which to me is probably a little bit more important to know educationally. But I don't think our current systems are up to that. Whatever way you approach these topics, it will reshape the way you look at pretty much everything. So let's get into it and see why this knowledge is a key deciphering skill for your toolkit. I will say there are a few other types of energy that aren't recognized with conventional teachings that come into play a little bit more in spiritual and esoteric circles. So we can look at those later. But for the purpose of this discussion, these are the main players. Nuclear fusion energy. This powerful energy is the very force that powers the sun and our own inner fire, the spark of transformation within us. Imagine solar flares as cosmic catalysts, triggering dormant aspects of ourselves and igniting spiritual growth, pushing us towards our higher potential. Electromagnetic energy. This invisible force acts as a cosmic language, carrying information and influencing everything around us. Solar storms send out electromagnetic waves of different types, bathing us in this energetic language and promoting intuitive downloads, heightened sensitivities, and deeper connections to the universe. Conductive energy. Our bodies act as giant conductors full of water. Solar storms can create subtle shifts within our own conductive system. This can manifest with physical effects like headaches, insomnia, and also heightened emotional sensitivity. But don't panic. These shifts can also act as powerful awakenings, jolting us out of our comfort zones and promoting us to realign with our higher selves. Any physical effects are only part of the story, and they are messengers to something that is happening within us on a deeper level. Think of it as a cosmic nudge to clear energetic blockages and create space for spiritual growth. Electrical energy. As we've discussed, we are powerful supercomputers, so this one is huge on us. This energy courses through our nervous system, driving every energy, thought, and feeling. During solar storms, these internal currents might fluctuate, leading to the same effects in the last energy type. Remember the bigger picture. These fluctuations can act as energetic resets, prompting us to recalibrate our internal systems and step into a higher vibrational state. It's like a cosmic power surge, charging our spiritual batteries and pushing us towards enlightenment. Now that's out of the way. Perhaps equally, if not more important than the types, are the phases of the energy transfer process, being potential energy and kinetic energy. And if you take anything away from this energy crash course, remember these two terms, because that's where the major impacts on your system come from. Even if you don't want to look further into the spiritual aspects of these shifts, you cannot deny the potential and kinetic energy effects that come with these fluctuations in energy types. Not even the science can refute that one. But before we move on to that, it's also really important to understand that the electrically charged protons that come in from a solar storm can be so dramatic that it damages spacecrafts, infrastructure, and our DNA. The science will specifically focus on the damaging effects and the hazardous potential of this activity. But keep in mind, that doesn't necessarily mean danger zone. This is actually a big part of the spiritual upgrade process, and I'll be talking about that. But in this case, the sun is basically acting somewhat like a big delivery system of energetic upgrades, kind of like the cosmic menu log, bringing the goods to your doorstep. Thanks, sun. There can be an opposite side to this. It's well documented that the geomagnetic activity of this greater ecosystem is known to exacerbate pre-existing health conditions, particularly the heart and lungs, which work hand in hand, and blood flow. If you struggle with controlling your blood pressure, for example, then you may notice a spike or drop in these levels during this type of activity, depending on the actual imbalances in your biological system, which also relate to any conditions that deal with the transmission of electrical impulses that make the system susceptible to things like seizures or, in my case, severe increases in neurological conditions, which can make it a little bit confusing to differentiate some manifestations, such as headaches, from an upgrade to ones relating to underlying health issues. But please remember that even these physical manifestations are a way for our body to try and communicate with us, and every symptom has a spiritual meaning. Please do seek medical help if you know you require it. I'm not disregarding that, but I am asking you to tune into what's happening in your body a little bit more and see that it may be related to things like solar activity or a spiritual process that is trying to happen but is perhaps reaching some internal blockages or things that haven't been healed, traumas that are still stored, and they manifest through the body. It is trying to communicate with you that something is off. So medical help still applies, but there is always something a little bit deeper. And I had to figure out the hard way just how vocal the biological system can be when something is off. It's also the perfect time to highlight a very common saying, something that I even say a lot, that all is energy. And that is true. It's simple and straightforward enough. When you understand the principles of energy transfer, you can start to understand how to harness and manipulate this energy. But it is also true that nothing in the real world is as it seems. And from the logical perspective, that can be understood with something as simple as absolutely nothing that you think of as solid, like the chair you're sitting on, or the building, any of the objects that you perceive with your visual apparatus is actually solid. And this isn't mystical, airy-fairy stuff. This is backed up by the science, which recognizes that all matter is in a state of flow. It's rate of flow and the density that determines how solid it appears to you. But appearance is the key word there. So to go even just a little bit deeper in quantum physics, spirituality, and the practical applications of teachings in many occult and esoteric systems, the world as we know it is an illusion. It is a false construct that, though pure in essence, has become engineered to trap and deceive, successfully implemented by a very intentionally suppressed collective consciousness. But thankfully, that is being shattered and paradigm shifted at rates both we haven't seen before and this greater system is not ready for. And that's where the saying comes to be in the system but not of the system. So another time we'll discuss why this year specifically is going to be the year of exactly that. Bit of a pushback and seeing beyond the veil, behind the matrix, and this world for what it actually is. This will be a historic year in your lifetime. And if you've clicked through this video, then I'm going to guess that you probably understand the energetic nature of all things and have glimpsed beyond that veil enough to be opened to continue to get stuck into the more important aspects of this topic. Before we waltz into the sun's cosmic role, it's time to understand the power players here, kinetic and potential energy. So let's get up close and intimate with them. To look at the physical and measurable consequences of these energetic eruptions only paints a tiny part of this masterpiece because it doesn't have a lot to do with size and mass, because protons truly beyond microscopic, but rather it has a lot more to do with the speed of the projected energy, because this speed amplifies the kinetic energy of anything coming in. And the solar bursts that we've been experiencing have been record breaking, at least for recent history, which means they've also had unmatched levels of potency in the energetic upgrades department. So think of kinetic energy as the actual movement on the dance floor. In our spiritual lives, it's the active practices like meditation, prayer, journaling, acts of kindness, sadhana, and energy work that keep us flowing. They allow us to express our inner spark. Kinetic energy is, scientifically speaking, transformative energy, converting an initial form of energy and transforming it into another type of energy, which is then stored back up as potential energy. And this works in subtle dimensions too. Potential energy, on the other hand, is stored power waiting to be released. And just like a coiled spring, our spiritual potential builds through contemplation, reflection, and inner work. These moments of quietude aren't passive, they're vital for collecting the accumulated fuel for transformation. Even on a mundane day-to-day level, the thought process alone consumes roughly 20% of your actual energy. When you start to consciously look at the process of energy exchange, even with something as simple as conversations that you have throughout your day, really starting to understand where potential sources of your energy leaks come from, you can see how important it is to prioritize your own personal energy and building your internal energy stores. When you build up enough energy, that definitely does have to go somewhere. Now back to our power plates, or phases, as the case may be. Imagine a cosmic disco ball, the solar storm that erupts. Suddenly, our whole energetic landscape changes. It shifts when the potential energy that we've built up gets a huge cosmic nudge, pushing it to release in kinetic bursts. And during this time, we might experience heightened creativity, increased intuition, or a surge of motivation, leading us to put our spiritual learnings into action. However, these energetic upgrades can also feel overwhelming and lead to physical discomfort or emotional fluctuations. It's crucial to understand why the sudden influx of potential energy amplified by the storm challenges our usual kinetic flow. Think of this as a disco ball strobe light. Exciting, but momentarily disorientating. And this understanding is key to recognizing the interplay between kinetic and potential energy, so we can navigate these cosmic disco moments with ease. We can consciously release excessive energy through grounding practices, allowing smooth transformation instead of being overwhelmed. And this allows us to harness the power of solar activity and use these storms as a catalyst for deeper spiritual growth, and not so much just chaotic interruptions. The reason why I'm delving into this from a more scientific perspective is not about learning the terms, but identifying and becoming conscious of the energetic dance within. As you observe your own experiences during this heightened solar activity, you'll gain a personal understanding of how these energies ebb and flow, empowering you to move through them.